Did you know that it's possible to use healthy boundary setting to avoid burnout at work? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 simple steps to do just that. You ready? Let's get it. Burnout is real and has become more and more a part of our reality. And it's so important that we're striving to find strategies to avoid that burnout, to keep ourselves energized and engaged in our work. By the end of this video, you're going to be armed with 3 strategies to help you avoid burnout by setting healthy boundaries. First, you'll learn the importance of defining the boundary for yourself. Next, we'll go through how to identify who you need to communicate that boundary to. And lastly, I'll share tips on how you can maintain those healthy boundaries in a sustainable way. Okay, we're talking about healthy boundary setting. So let's start by simply defining what is a boundary. So often we hear that language as it relates to our relationships, but the same holds true in your work. A boundary is a line, is something that you want to put in place to protect you, to make sure that you can show up your best and brightest to the organization. So think of it like an invisible line that you're drawing in the sand that you will not allow anyone to cross, right? It's a very clear boundary to protect yourself, to protect you being authentically you in your work day to day. Setting these boundaries are so critical in our work, especially as we think about avoiding burnout. It's so important that you're clear on establishing them and then sharing out who needs to know these boundaries so that they know not to step over them. Defining these boundaries, especially at work, are so important to enable you to continue delivering your best work, being your full, authentic self. And so let's go through 3 steps that you need to be taking to define and maintain healthy boundaries at work to avoid burnout. The very first step is getting crystal clear on what that boundary needs to be for you. I've been doing some work with an organization, a Fortune 100, and I was working with one of their senior level executives, and we were talking about boundary setting as it relates to change fatigue and burnout. And he mentioned that he's very adamant every quarter to take time off for his family, making sure he's taking time off for his daughter's soccer games and things going on with his son. But he recognized he never was adamant about taking time solely for him. He recognized he hadn't set that boundary, but it's one that he actually wanted to put in place so that he could avoid that burnout. And so moving forward, every quarter, he set a boundary. There will be one day that I'm going to take off solely for me, to refill my tank, do the things that really light me up. And that was a very clear boundary that he realized he needed to set for himself. So once you've identified what that boundary is and defined it for yourself, the second step is understanding who you need to communicate that boundary to. Now, most often when we're talking about work, boundaries need to be communicated to your one-up manager, as well as to your direct reports and to your team members. I can't tell you how much value that is when you're joining a new team, maybe you're starting a new project, and at the start of really coming together as a team, you have a conversation with everyone saying, these are my working hours. This is when you can actually find me. This is the way that I like to communicate. It's always over email, never over text, and kind of setting those rules, those boundaries for yourself so that they know how you work best and how you're going to be able to deliver and help nurture the success of that team. So understand, who do I need to communicate this boundary to? Who is at risk of potentially crossing this boundary that I've defined for myself? Now, the last step, and this one is probably the most challenging as we think about our healthy boundary setting, is maintaining that boundary over time. I can attest, and I've seen it, that people will push that boundary as far as you'll let them. And so it's so important that you're maintaining those boundaries. And if there are individuals who are trying to step over that boundary, simply restate it. This is a boundary that I have in order for me to show up and do my work in the best way that I can and be my full authentic self. And I just want to give you a quick reminder, it's a boundary that I have, and I've noticed that, you're trying to impede upon it, and I want to keep doing my work the best that I can, so please respect that. And it's so important that you're nurturing that culture of respecting boundaries, not only for yourself, but if you notice that within someone else, to respect that as well. So often when I'm sharing what my boundaries are, and notably it's around when I'm going to be available to deliver or respond to work messages from clients or from my employees, it's about communication, right? What are my time windows, as well as how do I best like to be communicated to? And when I'm stating those boundaries, I always then ask the question, what are some of your boundaries? How do you like to work? How best can we engage? So not only are you plainly stating what's important for you and your boundaries, but you're also inviting that from another. And that's going to demand respect, because if they're stating it to you, they're going to want you to respect that boundary. And just as you have stated yours, they should be respecting yours as well. And by the way, if you're getting value out of this content all around boundaries and avoiding burnout, be sure to like, subscribe, or even click notification. I create videos like this all the time. And if you want to be the first one to know when a new video drops, make sure you like, subscribe, and even click notification. All right, let's get back into it. So now that we've been through all three of those steps, defining the boundary for yourself, communicating who needs to know that boundary, then maintaining that boundary moving forward, I want to add in a little bit of a bonus step. And that is repeating steps 2 and 3 on somewhat of a regular basis. You know, as we're getting into new roles, as we're growing in our work, sometimes our boundaries can change. And so it's always important that you're doing a gut check to understand, where have I defined my boundaries? Am I maintaining them? And does anything need to get adjusted? And know that it's completely okay. It's okay for you to decide when a boundary needs to change. It's not okay for someone else to push that boundary in a way that you don't think has merit, or that's something that you didn't sign up for. So every now and again, refresh on steps 2 through 3, maybe even steps 1 through 3, right? Understanding where you define the boundaries, what new ones need to be, put in there, or maybe the ones that you already have, how do they need to change? We're all growing, we're all evolving. As a part of that evolutionary process, our boundaries can change from time to time. So refresh those on a periodic basis. Let me also just add just one other tidbit, just because I think this conversation around boundaries is so important, especially as it relates to burnout. From time to time, there can be exceptions, right? You might set a very clear boundary, but a new project comes, a new initiative comes, it's very demanding, and what had been your established working hours might need to change in order to achieve that. It's okay to have exceptions from time to time, but what I will coach you on is those exceptions can become a very slippery slope. So I simply invite you to recognize when you're making an exception, know that it's an exception, and realize the defined boundary, and get back to it once that exception is no longer valid. Otherwise, an exception will redefine a new boundary that you may not be cool with moving forward. So now that you've learned how to set healthy boundaries to help you avoid burnout, I've got something else I want to give you. So my company, Change Enthusiasm Global, recently partnered with a leading research firm, set out to study the dynamics of change and emotion in the workplace. And something that we really studied was burnout. What drives it and how do you mitigate it? And I want to gift those insights to you for free. All you gotta do is click on the link below and we'll send you the complete research paper filled with the insights and the data around burnout. I wanna make sure that you have that research, the data, and the insights to enable you to be successful growing through even your most difficult change challenges. I'm Cassandra Worthy, and until we meet again, keep growing and keep rocking.